Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Initial NBA Podcast. What's up? It's your host CJ, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about. It's been a couple weeks since the last pod dropped. We were just kind of coming off the heels of the Pascal Siakam trade. I think was the most recent. Was kind of like the new thing to talk about, as well as the All Star starters being announced. Essentially this episode we're gonna just kind of go over all of the rest of the trades that happened leading up to the trade deadline. Think about everything that happened kind of that week preceding the deadline. And then at the end, I think I might touch a little bit on all-star rosters. Overall, I didn't have many complaints, but there were a couple, I think, slight surprises. So let's get into all the trades, right? First one I had, and this isn't in a particular order necessarily. There's a lot of trades in here where it's like, hey, nothing really happened. It happened though. You know what I'm saying? So let's start out with the Grizzlies Rockets trade. This was the Grizzlies giving up Steven Adams, who, as we all know, is out for the year. And then the Grizzlies or the Rockets ended up giving up Victor Oladipo, 2024 second round pick. That's OKC's 2024 second round pick, which is the best of Brooklyn's or Golden State's. And there's some protections on that. Brooklyn's is 55 through 58 protected. Golden State is 56 through 58 protected. And then a 2025 second round pick, which is the best of either Houston or OKC, is what the Grizzlies received. So this, this is a trade that doesn't have any implications this year, right? Steven Adams is out for the year, as we all know. Victor Oladipo, again, he hasn't played all year either, and he was actually waived by the Grizzlies. So this was more or less the Grizzlies salary dumping Steven Adams, and basically just buying a couple second rounders from Houston. In terms of Houston, I like this move for them. Obviously not this year because Adams is hurt, but I like it for next year. Have a solid vet backup. For Alperen Sengun. I actually kind of like this. Oladipo was used as a salary match, and that's the reason why he got moved and then subsequently waived. But the Grizzlies get a couple second round picks out of it, and they get off that salary, and the Rockets get a really solid backup center that next year could help them out. So Grizzlies Rockets, not a bad trade. Again, that isn't one that's going to impact this year at all, but it was definitely worth pointing out, just because Steven Adams is a decently big name. Next up, we got a Celtics Grizzlies trade. This was the Grizzlies traded Xavier Tillman for and the Celtics, and ended up receiving Lamar Stevens, a 2027 second round pick, which is owned by the Hawks, or originally owned by the Hawks, and a 2030 second round pick, originally owned by the Mavs. So this is the Celtics kind of giving themselves an insurance policy in their front court. He's a solid backup big. When you think about who the Celtics are going to be relying on, come the playoff time, at the 4 and the 5, you have Kristaps Porzingis, who has a history of injuries, and then Al Horford, who is in his late 30s, and at the end of last year started to kind of break down a little bit. So I like this get by the Celtics as kind of like an insurance policy in case something happens to one of those two guys, given their injury history and their age in Horford's case. The Grizzlies end up turning Tillman, who's pretty much a depth big, into Stevens, who is a depth forward. Get a couple future second round picks out of it. Why not? Not a bad deal on either side. So I like this one. And I will say, just kind of as we're going through these trades, there are not a whole lot of these I actually hate. Usually you come out of trade season, you're like, that team effed up, that team effed up, that team effed up. But I think there's really only like one or two teams that kind of lost with their trades. So overall, this is going to be a relatively positive podcast. Unlike a lot of times these, when you're looking at trades that happen around the trade deadline, a lot of times it's very easy to fall into that was a garbage trade, they got a garbage player, that type of thing. But overall, I think a lot of these trades made sense. There's going to be a lot of positivity here. There are exceptions. Trust me. All right, next up I have on my list, we have the Timberwolves and Pistons making a trade. The Pistons trading away Monte Morris to the Wolves. And then the Wolves trading away Troy Brown Jr., Shake Milton, and a 2030 second round pick originally owned by the Timberwolves to the Pistons. So I love this trade for the Wolves. Mostly because I am a Monte Morris stan. He is my guy. Obviously I'm a Nuggets fan. I got the championship merch on right now. I love Monte Morris. He was a very, very, very solid backup point guard. For the 5 or 6 years he was in Denver. It's funny, he's one of those guys they drafted in the second round out of, I think it was Iowa State. And I think he was at the time like the all-time college leader in assist to turnover ratio. And I'm like, this is perfect. Backup point guard, doesn't turn the ball over. That's exactly what you want. He turned out that's exactly what he ended up being, a backup point guard who, can shoot a little bit if you need him to. He can score a little bit if you need him to, but obviously you should not lean on him to do that. But he's going to run your offense. He's going to take care of the ball, which, in my opinion, for a backup ball handling guard, that is the most important kind of talent or thing you need to do in that position. So to me, Monte's that perfect backup point guard. He's not going to lose you games, right? He won't win you games, but he won't lose you games, which that's kind of all you can really ask for from the bench, in my opinion. So I love this for the Timberwolves. They needed another point guard, and I trust Monte Morris. Again, he's not a starter. He shouldn't be a starter. We saw what happened when Jamal Murray was hurt. He was definitely one of the weak links of that Denver offense. In those years Murray was hurt. He's pretty small. He's not a great defender, even though he does try. But I do like this for the Timberwolves come playoff time. Give Monte Morris 15 minutes, 12 to 15 minutes while Mike Conley's resting. I think that's a good deal for Minnesota. Detroit's return on Monte is meh. I did mention that mostly going to be positive. The team that is probably going to kind of catch a lot of my ire is the Pistons. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. But anyway, Detroit's return for Monte Morris is pretty meh. Maybe they could have gotten more, but maybe not. A second rounder 6 years from now, I feel like you could pretty much get those for free. Because that's essentially the best thing they got in this deal was a 2030 second round pick, which is owned by the Timberwolves. And if Anthony Edwards keeps on this trajectory, it's going to be a very late second round pick. Troy Brown and Shake Milton, I think we kind of know what they are in the NBA. They're in their mid-20s at this point. They're both the 12th or 13th guy in a rotation. I'm not really sure what they're doing for you just in general. They're the 12th or 13th guy in a rotation on an okay team. So I don't, players like that, I don't know what the point is, right? Like if a guy isn't gonna progress, right? We already know what he is as a player. And he's kind of capped out at being your 11, 12, 13 guy. Might as well just get someone younger. I mean, if I'm building a team, that's what I would do. So yeah, I don't love this return for Detroit. I would have thought Monte could have fetched, maybe an additional second round pick or one that's sooner. Like a second round pick in 2024, 2025 is much more valuable than one in 2030, especially one that belongs to the Timberwolves. So, bad job by the Pistons, in my opinion. Monte Morris, he's a very solid backup point guard, which every team needs a solid backup point guard. And if all you're really getting is a 2030 second round pick that's going to be owned by a very good team in all likelihood in 6 years, that's a bad trade. That's a bad trade by them. All right, next up we got the Pistons Jazz trade. Again, Pistons are back. The Pistons got Simon Fontecchio. Hopefully I said that right. Maybe not. That's okay. I'll try again the next time if I did get it wrong. And then the Jazz ended up getting Kevin Knox, who they ended up waiving. A 2024 second round pick, which is the best of the Wizards and the Grizzlies, and then the rights to Gabriel Procida. So the Jazz ended up waiving Kevin Knox already. So this is essentially the Jazz just trying to get some more picks. Fontecchio is on an expiring contract anyway, so get off of a contract that's going to expire at the end of the year, get some kind of asset out of him. I don't think that's a bad deal. With the draft rights, who the fuck knows when you start trading draft rights to guys. I will say, Procida, he's 21 from Italy. He's playing in the German league, based on what I read. And I guess is one of the top handful of candidates for the EuroLeague Rising Star Award this year. I will mention I was curious, so I was looking it up. Some past EuroLeague Rising Stars was Luka Doncic. So that's pretty good guy, pretty good player. So who knows? I mean, in all likelihood, it ends up being nothing, but who knows? Maybe in 3 years, the Jazz end up getting this stud Italian dude that is just getting buckets. So who knows? Even if he ends up being a fringe rotation player, that's not bad. I don't know what this trade accomplishes for the Pistons. So like I said, I'm pretty positive, but I'm gonna shit on the Pistons because I don't know what the fuck they're doing. They got a guy who's on a expiring contract who is already 28 years old. So right, if you think of the Pistons, they got a long way to go before they're competitive. I don't know what a 28-year-old guy is really helping you there, because you're probably a good 4 or 5 years from doing any kind of competing anyway. At that point, that guy's 35. Why? Or 34, 35, whatever. Then that guy that they got is also at best like an off the bench guy, like maybe 8th or 9th guy in a rotation. So I don't know what the Pistons are doing, and what they gave up. Kevin Knox was waived, whatever. The rights to the player, whatever. That's a total crapshoot. But they gave up a 2024 second round pick, which is the best of either the Wizards or the Grizzlies. So effectively, because the Wizards and the Pistons are the two worst teams in the league, effectively they're going to get a late first round pick. The Jazz are from the Pistons. So I am unsure why the Pistons would give up a late, essentially what will end up being a late first round pick for a guy that maybe at the end of the season isn't on your roster because he's on an expiring contract. And maybe you re-sign him, that's fine, but like what is that doing for the next couple of years? So yeah, this isn't anything bad about Simone Fontecchio. He's a fine player, right? He's a solid bench rotation guy. Shoots pretty well from 3, whatever. I just don't know what the Pistons. What is their line of thinking here? Their moves do not. They just don't really make sense. So yeah, that's the Pistons Jazz trade. Next up, we got the Pacers Warriors. Had a deal. They made a trade. The Pacers ended up getting Corey Joseph, who the Pacers waived. They got a 2025 second round pick, which originally belonged to the Hornets, and then cash. The Warriors ended up getting a 2024 second round pick, which will end up becoming the worst one the Pacers had. For whatever reason, I didn't write what team specifically that is. But this is just the Warriors trying to shed some luxury tax. The Pacers, they got about $6 million to waive Corey Joseph. And this ends up saving Golden State $17 million off their luxury tax bill. So this 100% is a salary dump to try to save for the Warriors, trying to save some luxury tax. The Pacers end up getting a decently high second round pick for their troubles. It's going to be the one belonging to the Hornets. So if you're thinking about second round picks, it's probably landing in the 30 to 35 range, which is, to me, anything with how talented a bunch of guys are coming into the NBA. If you have a second round pick in that 30 to 35 range, like that's almost a late first round pick, based on, guys' talent. So, I don't mind that, for either side. Warriors obviously get some cap relief that they needed. Pacers end up essentially upgrading a second round pick because they're going to give up their worst second rounder. So the Pacers got some money and upgraded a second rounder for their troubles. And then the Warriors get the cap relief. So that's fine. Good move on both sides. These are like these small minutia deals that like obviously don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But if you're a franchise, these are the type of deals that are like kind of working around the margins to just give you the slight advantage, whether that be cap wise or pick wise or whatever it is. So I actually like these types of deals. I think anytime a team can, they should be looking for deals like this that maybe don't really affect anything on the court yet, but could end up contributing to something better happening down the road. Whether that be an extra second round pick, right? Being able to package multiple picks together, being able to duck under the luxury tax so that you don't pay that repeater penalty, so that going forward you can be a little looser with your money. So things like that. The trades like that, I'm a big proponent for, right? Next up, we got another Pistons trade. They're very busy for a team that's terrible. And not necessarily busy in a good way. 76ers Pistons. Pistons ended up getting Danuel House Jr., who the Pistons ended up waiving. 2024 second round pick that originally belonged to the Knicks, and then cash. The 76ers got a 2028 second round pick, which is top 55 protected. So this is a salary dump by the 76ers. Pistons are obviously the one doing the dumping, or I guess taking the trash out. I don't know how you would really describe it. But the Pistons helping the 76ers out. In return, obviously the Pistons get cash, and then the Pistons get a second round pick for this year, belonging to the Knicks, so it'll be probably in the late 40s, early 50s, but still get a second round pick. And then, what the Pistons gave up was a 2028 second round pick, but it's top 55 protected. So essentially, unless the Pistons are in the conference finals, they will get to keep that pick. So good deal by them. This is actually a good deal by the Pistons. This is the first one that we've gotten talked about so far. I like this deal for the Pistons. They get a free pick out of it. They get some cash. What they gave up is basically nothing, because if they're giving up, they would gladly give up that second round pick, because that means they were good in 2028. And then the 76ers, get some cap relief, open up a roster spot. They, give them some opportunity for buyouts and other moves in the trade market. So, hey, good deal on both sides. 2 thumbs up. Next up, we have Raptors Jazz. The Raptors get Kelly Olynyk and Ochai Agbaji, sorry. And then the Jazz get Otto Porter Jr., Kira Lewis Jr., and then a 2024 first round pick, which ends up being the worst of OKC, the Clippers, the Rockets, and the Jazz. I have no idea what the hell this does for Toronto, if I'm going to be real. The Raptors aren't making the playoffs this year. So why the hell are they trading for a 32-year-old backup center on an expiring contract? Fuck if I know. That makes no sense to me. This is nothing against Kelly Olynyk. This is nothing against Ochai Agbaji. This deal makes 0 sense for the Raptors. I mean, maybe they really love Ochai. I don't know. Maybe. I guess maybe you could argue that. With that said, Toronto really didn't give much up in terms of players. I personally would have kept the pick if I was them. I understand it's going to be the worst of OKC, Clippers, Rockets, and Jazz. So the Clippers and OKC are very good. So that pick is going to be in the late 20s. But still, I don't know what a 32-year-old Kenny Olynyk on an expiring contract is doing for you this year. The Jazz ended up getting a first-round pick for a player that isn't in their long-term plans. So good trade for them. The Otto Porter Jr. and Kira Lewis Jr. pieces, those are whatever, because neither one of those guys are, really effective NBA players, at least not anymore. So yeah, don't know what the Raptors are doing here. But I like this for the Jazz. And with that said, I do wonder if they could have gotten a little more for Kelly Olynyk. And probably not, right? First round pick for Kelly Olynyk, that's probably a late first round pick. Let's not get crazy. For Kelly Olynyk is probably his max, the maximum you're getting for him. So yeah. Next up, we got the Bucks and the Kings. The Kings ended up getting Robin Lopez, who they waived, and then they got cash. The Bucks get rights to Dimitrios Agravanis, another draft and stash guy. This was just a cost cutting move by Milwaukee. The Kings are getting a couple. I have no idea how much they get from this. The only actual number I found was the $6 million for the Corey Joseph thing. But the Kings are getting some cash for this. to essentially take on Lopez's salary and waive him. The Bucks get cap relief and free up a roster spot, right? This essentially it says it saves the Bucks $8.6 million in luxury tax penalties, which again, for one of these teams like the Warriors, the Nuggets, the Bucks, the Celtics, you're going to be doing moves like this, getting off of semi big veteran salaries just to try to reduce your tax bill, because then obviously the bigger your tax bill is, the less sustainable the whole championship thing is going forward. So the draft piece, that's basically just, hey, we didn't just give you this stuff, we actually gave something up, because as far as I know, I don't think NBA trades can be absolutely one-sided, right? You can't just, here's a player in cash and that's it. There has to be something coming back the other way, as far as I know. Maybe that's wrong, but this tells me that there has to be something going both ways, even if that something doesn't matter. The Bucks get a Argovanis is 29. He's never going to come over to the NBA. He was an all-star and all-Greek first-team player in 2022 in the Greek League, so that's cool, I guess. They can brag about that. He also ups the number of Greek players the Bucks either employ or have the draft rights to, so I guess good for Milwaukee. But this is just a salary dump for the Bucks. Good move by them. And then yeah, if you're a team that has the capabilities to do it, like, you should be taking on these salary dumps as much as possible, either getting cash or getting free second round picks for it. 100% worth it. Okay, now we have a deal that actually might make a difference somewhere. I know most of the ones I've talked about so far, it's either like, what the hell is this team doing, or they're like, yeah, that isn't gonna matter in the grand scheme of the NBA basketball. But this one might. We have the Wizards, Mavs, and then I threw the Thunder in there. Full disclosure, this is two separate trades officially. But when you look at it, you're like, this is the only reason this trade happened was so the other one could happen. So it's pretty much a 3-teamer. So I'm considering it a 3-teamer because it's all packaged together from a common sense perspective, even though officially it's two separate trades. So the first one was a Mavs Wizards trade, right? The Mavs ended up getting Daniel Gafford from Washington, right? And then the Wizards got Richaun Holmes from Dallas, and then they got a pick. Now, Dallas did not have a pick to trade the Wizards. So what Dallas did is they did a trade with the Thunder, and this is why I'm considering it all one thing, where Dallas traded a 2028 first-round pick swap to the Thunder. So the Thunder in 2028 have the right to swap with Dallas, first-round picks. And in return, Dallas got a 2024 first-round pick, which turns out, and this is from the Thunder, which turns out to be the second worst pick between the Clippers, Rockets, which is top 4 protected, Jazz top 10 protected, and the Clippers and the Thunder. So, and then that first round pick that the Mavs got from the Thunder, they shipped right to Washington. So in the end, it ends up being, hey, the Mavs got Daniel Gafford, the Wizards got Richaun Holmes, and then that 2024 first round pick that is the second worst of OKC, the Clippers, basically. And then the Thunder got a 2028 first round pick swap with Dallas. So again, not officially a 3-team trade, but in essence, it's a 3-team trade. Okay, so this is a good short-term move by the Mavs. I like this a lot for Dallas. They needed a big. They needed just someone to play freaking defense, and to just be a rebounder and a big body down low. Lively's great, but he's also been hurt, and he's a rookie, right? So I really like this for Dallas. Mavs had that front court need. They filled it. Gafford's been good for Washington. It actually kind of surprised me that they were willing to trade him. And then Dallas really didn't give a whole lot up? Question mark? In terms of players, they didn't. Richaun Holmes wasn't really playing. So on the player front, Dallas didn't give up much, if anything. However, that 2028 pick swap, who knows, right? It is something to just kind of keep in the back of your mind. Because there's 100% a scenario that in 4 years the Mavericks are terrible. If Luka decides, hey, I can't win here, I want to move on. And if that's the case, this trade ends up being really bad for Dallas. Because obviously, if Dallas has a top 5 pick, OKC is gonna swap that, and OKC is gonna be really good in 4 years. So I don't hate that for Dallas now, but looking back at this trade 4 years from now, I can be like, that was awful. So yeah, just keep that in the back of your mind. I'm a bit surprised that Washington was willing to trade Gafford. He's really solid, one of the few bright spots. Washington's terrible, but he's probably one of 2 good players on that team, maybe 3. And obviously, their rookie from this year, Koulibaly, he's a rookie, so you have to be at least hopeful for him. Danny, and I'm gonna mess up his name, Avija. I don't know. He's been crushing it over the last month or so. So, but Gafford's been really solid. He was second on the team in value over replacement player, or VORP, and then first in win shares. So if you like the nerdy stat stuff, Gafford was one of the lone bright spots in Washington. So I've talked about kind of the players. The interesting part of this, to me, and I think you're going to see certain teams do this a lot. The Thunder getting in to almost every, a bunch of trades that happen, just doing little pick swaps and kicking the can down the road. So the Thunder providing Dallas that first round pick to reroute to Washington in return getting that right to a swap. Is you're going to see that a lot from teams like the Thunder and the Jazz and teams that have a bunch of picks. So like the Thunder have that treasure trove of picks, right? And they are already really good. They have their core set. They can maybe use one more guy, but they have so many assets in the future. They have just way more picks they're ever going to realistically use in the next 6 years. So essentially what they're doing is they're trading one of their, hey, we have this pick next year. They're trading a solid, valuable, like not really valuable, but like a solid, tangible pick. And they're saying, we will trade this tangible pick because we have so much stuff in order for the potential to upgrade one of ours later. So that's essentially what they're doing. They're kicking their draft capital down the road, which you're going to see a lot, where they're going to trade stuff for this year or next year and try to get something 4, 5, 6 years in the future. And then you're also going to see times where they give up a pick for this year or next year for the opportunity to upgrade their pick later. So you're going to see a lot of that. But then not only that is they're also kind of betting on the fact that in the future the teams they're trading with are going to be bad, so they end up being a perennial contender while also getting high draft picks because of these swaps that they're going to do. So look out for teams like the Thunder. I think the Jazz have a decent number of picks. There are definitely others where you're going to see trades like this, and I think this is a very smart way to do business. Especially, again, like the Thunder, they have so much capital. They're kind of forced to do stuff like this, but they're doing it in a way where they're just not giving up stuff. They're trying to potentially get something out of it. Think of it, they're gambling. They're gambling with the draft capital that they have left over, which, I mean, if you have all that leftover stuff, might as well, right? So you're going to see a lot of those picks. And there was a pick over the summer where the Thunder got a pick in some deal that they weren't even involved in. Outside of just like, hey, you want to do a pick swap as part of this? Like that type of shit. You're going to see a lot of that from the Thunder. All right, that's enough about OKC and how I love what they're doing as a organization and building. And they're playing NBA 2K GM mode, but like they're really good at it, pretty much. Next up, we have another trade that doesn't matter. Blazers Celtics. Celtics got a 2027 second round pick from the Blazers, which is top 55 protected. The Blazers got Delano, Banton, and Cash. So this is a salary dump for the Celtics. The pick is in all likelihood not going to convey, right? Because if it's a 2027 second round pick, this top 55 protected. That means the Blazers are making the Western Conference Finals, pretty much, in order for that protection not to work. So this is a salary dump. Blazers get some cash. They take a flyer on a 6'9" point guard. That's about all I could find about Delano Banton. His stats were not good. But hey, he's a point guard and he's 6'9", so maybe you can work with that. Why not? Why not? Good trade on both sides. Next up, we have another one. Nuggets Clippers. Nuggets did make a trade. I saw something on social media where it's like, did the Nuggets not do anything? It's like, technically they did, but they also didn't. The Nuggets got cash. Money's cool. And then the Clippers got the draft rights for Ismail Kamagate. So, this is the Clippers pretty much just getting draft rights to draft and stash guys in the future for potential use. I will say, as a Nuggets fan, I actually did. I have watched Ishmael play. He wasn't really impressive in the summer league at all. He's been pretty meh in Europe. He's already 23. I don't know if he does come into the NBA. He's a end of the bench, maybe the end of rotation guy. I will say 3 years ago, a lot of Nuggets fans were excited about him when he was 18 because he has like the physical tools. But yeah, he can't really shoot. He's a poor rebounder for his size. There's a lot of stuff that he's very meh. So yeah, the Nuggets got some money for it. The Clippers got a draft and stash guy that maybe they bring over in the future, or something else they can flip for a second round pick, or maybe the Thunder just are like, hey, we have the second round pick we can't use. We'll give it to you. Do you have something to trade us? And the Clippers will be like, yeah, here's draft rights for a guy that'll never come over from France. Cool. Perfect. Done. All right, next up, we got the Celtics and 76ers made a trade. Celtics got Jaden Springer. 76ers got a 2024 second-round pick, which will be the best of Chicago or the Pelicans. This will probably be Chicago. This is Boston taking a flyer on a young guard for a really cheap price. Springer hasn't been in Philly's rotation, so they do get off his salary. Again, they've been wanting to kind of work the buyout market. They already signed Kyle Lowry. Wanting to get down in salaries, and they end up trading what'll end up being a mid-second round pick, because that'll end up conveying as the one that originally was owned by the Bulls. So yeah, I'm fine with this trade for either side. Not to beat a dead horse, but I like it when you get capital for stuff you're not using. I also like it when you give up very little capital for potential upside guy. So yeah. All right, next up, we have another trade that actually might matter. Matter might be a strong word. It's a trade that you'll actually see some benefits from. Benefits? Is benefits the right word either? I don't know if benefits is even the right word. You'll see these guys play in the playoffs this year, I guess, maybe. That's probably the best way to explain it. At least one of these guys. So Bucks 76ers. The Bucks got Patrick Beverley. As far as I know, I'm pretty sure he dropped it on his own podcast, which is an interesting way for a trade to break. And then the 76ers got Campaign, and then a 2027 second round pick, which originally is owned by the Bucks. So I like this for the Bucks. They upgrade defensively at point guard. Patrick Beverley's very good, fine backup point guard, right? Brings a lot of defense. Their biggest concern at guard is defense, right? With Damian Lillard as your showrunner at the point guard position, defense is definitely the biggest question. I like having Patrick Beverley, that you could either, when he comes off the bench, he'll be a very different way to play against the Bucks than Damian Lillard is. And then you can also probably play them side by side, right? You can have them as both guards. Yeah, they're both undersized, but Beverly's a dog, and is just an asshole to play against. So I actually really like this for the Bucks. Campaign, he's fine, I guess, but you can do better at backup point guard. He's done a good job of kind of like resurrecting his career. He was fine in Phoenix, but he's just too inconsistent. So yeah, I don't really love this for Philly, since going from Beverly to Payne is a bit of a downgrade at backup point guard, especially defensively. Offensively, I think they're relatively the same. With that said, though, after they made this trade, the 76ers did end up signing Kyle Lowry, who the Hornets ended up buying out. So in the end, they ended up getting a comparable player, I think, to Patrick Beverley, and got a second round pick out of it. So after that happened, I was like, okay, I do like this move for Philly. Not because of what they got in the Pat Bev trade, but because it kind of paved the way for signing Kyle Lowry in the buyout market. So, in the end, it's more of a Patrick Beverley for Kyle Lowry trade, plus 76ers got a pick and campaign that who knows what will happen there. So yeah, I kind of like that for both teams, honestly. Next up. Those damn Raptors are doing stuff again. The Nets. So this is a Raptors Nets trade. The Nets got Dennis Schroeder and Thaddeus Young. They waived Thaddeus Young. The Raptors ended up getting Spencer Dinwiddie, who they then waived. And then Dinwiddie signed with the Lakers. And Thaddeus Young. Who the hell did Thaddeus Young sign with? I remember seeing that he signed with someone. Hold on, I'm gonna look this up real quick. Thaddeus Young signed with the Phoenix Suns. That's right. This is another salary dump. The Raptors are wanting. This is them wanting to get off of Schroeder's salary for next year, which I actually am fine with. Right, the Raptors are not going to be good. But just embrace the tank, guys. You can trade off these kind of older veterans that aren't in your long term plans that also don't really provide a whole lot in terms of like veteran leadership and stuff. 100% get rid of them. The Nets wanted to move on from Dinwiddie, and it sounds like kind of Spencer Dinwiddie wanted the same thing based on what I read. So yeah, and then obviously the Raptors ended up buying out. So this is like the ultimate salary dump because the Raptors didn't even get a second round pick back. They were just like, "Hey Nets, do you want this guy?" And then the Nets were like, "Yeah, do you want this guy? Doesn't want to be here." And the Raptors are like, "Sure, screw it, why not?" And then they end up getting rid of Dinwiddie, which I think is kind of funny. So, and I like Spencer Dinwiddie. Obviously as a Colorado guy, I root for all the former Buffs. So I like Dinwiddie. But yeah, then he signed with the Lakers, so I guess I actually kind of like that for the Lakers. But yeah, this trade between the Nets and Raptors, neither team's good. Trade doesn't move the needle. But I do like that the Raptors get the cap flexibility next year. And I do kind of like the Nets getting kind of a serviceable point guard for the next year or two. While they also were able to get rid of a guy that wanted out. So they're kind of able to upgrade the point guard situation while also kind of moving on from a guy that didn't want to be there anymore. So yeah, not a bad trade by either team. Okay, next up, we have another trade that actually might do something, right? It might matter come playoff time. Oh, those pesky Pistons making another trade with the Knicks this time. The Knicks ended up getting Alec Burks, another CU guy, root for him. And then Bojan Bogdanovic. Then the Pistons got Evan Fournier, Malachi Flynn, Quentin Grimes, Ryan Arcidiacono. Is that what it was? I remember him from college. 2028 second round pick, 2029 second round pick, and cash. Arcidiacono was waived, by the way. So I love this for the Knicks, right? They gave up one rotation player in this, right? They gave up Quentin Grimes. However, they essentially upgraded him to Bojan Bogdanovic, who's a borderline starter on a lot of teams and has started a lot in his NBA career. And then the Knicks also get another solid rotation player in Burks. For if you're kind of breaking the trade up for some spare parts and some future second rounders. I love this for the Knicks. This is a great trade by them. I love this. I'm for the Pistons. Don't mean to shit on the Pistons, but is that all you can get for Bojan Bogdanovic? Is that all you can get? 2 future second round picks and at the end of the decade, and Evan Fournier, who has he been bought out? I don't know if he's been bought out yet. He probably should be bought out, honestly. And then Malachi Flynn, who was just kind of salary filler previously from as part of the OG Anunoby trade. And then Ryan Arcidiacono, who you waived already. I mean, I guess if you really like Quentin Grimes, maybe. Because he's I guess the centerpiece of what the Pistons got back. I just don't know what they're doing. You're telling me another contender wouldn't give up a late first round pick for Bogdanovich, or someone that maybe has a little more upside than Quentin Grimes. So yeah, yeah, I get Quentin Grimes is young, I guess, but then everything else got was a bunch of end of the bench guys, some second rounders way in the future. The more I look at what the Pistons have done this deadline, I'm like, what the fuck are you like? Who's running that organization? Someone take the phone away from them. I'm not even a Pistons fan, but I just feel bad for everyone in Detroit because not only have they had to kind of live through this horrible season where I don't even remember, they lost a stupid number of games in a row. I think they broke the record, or at least like a game off. I don't remember. They are stuck with this head coach who's not a good head coach, if we're being real, especially not for the salary he makes. They've had to deal with the Isaiah Stewart punching what's the guy for Phoenix, Eubanks, the other night for whatever reason in the tunnel. We still have to see the video for that. I feel bad for Pistons fans, man. I'm sorry, your franchise is really bad and is probably at this point the worst managed franchise in the NBA, from a player personnel and basketball decision perspective. So yeah, Knicks Pistons made a trade. The Knicks made out like bandits. The Pistons are just damn sad. All right. Okay, cool. We have another trade that might make a difference come playoff time. The Thunder and the Hornets making a trade. Thunder got Gordon Hayward. The Hornets got this is gonna be tough. Vasilije Micic. Pretty good. Trey Mann, Davis Bertans, 2024 second round pick originally owned by the Rockets, and then a 2025 second round pick originally owned by the 76ers. So I will say I really like this trade for the Thunder. They're obviously a very young team. Getting a guy like Gordon Hayward, while he has played in some playoff games for a guy his age, you would think it would have been a little bit more. Injuries have played a part of that, right? But you at least get a really solid veteran NBA player, right? Former All-Star, actually. If you remember 6 years ago or whenever it was. Though, even though I do like this trade for the Thunder, just as their, for trade deadline overall for them, it felt like they kind of ignored their biggest need. I feel like they needed a big, whether it be a backup, in all likelihood, a backup for Chet, or even a backup for Chet. So it surprised me that their biggest trade was for a guy like Gordon Hayward, when, maybe you could have gotten, like a Kelly Olynyk. That would have been perfect for the Thunder. It surprises me that they didn't, throw out one of their first round picks and then maybe 2 seconds and then obviously salary, in order to get Kelly Olynyk. So, I like this trade, but it feels like the Thunder kind of swung and missed a little bit on what it feels like their biggest need was, right? Because while Holmgren's awesome, he's also 7 foot 200 pounds and gets destroyed by some of these bigger centers in the NBA. He's still a rookie. He's awesome. There's no denying, but he's still a rookie. He's gonna get in foul trouble. Like as much as amazing as it's been, like the playoffs are a different thing, man. So yeah, it's just surprising to me. But yeah, Hayward will give OKC a good vet. I'm assuming he's going to come off the bench. For a team that's super young, he's kind of one of the perfect guys you could have. They didn't give up a whole lot to do it, I will say. Essentially 3 fringe rotation guys and 2 second rounders and their treasure trove of picks. That's pretty good. The Hayward salary though is a downside, and that's part of the reason why they had to give up Bertans, because his salary is pretty big too. Hayward is owed $33 million and will be extension eligible this offseason. So there's definitely a possibility that Hayward is in OKC for half a season, then it's gone. Because I would imagine Hayward's still going to command a decent salary, not the $33 million he's making now, but it's definitely going to be more than it's going to be in like the probably $15 to $20 million range. So that gets that's kind of expensive. I like this for the Hornets too. You're not good. Might as well trade off your vets for that have some value to some of the contenders. Sal, the Hornets, obviously the package of 2 second rounders and then 3 kind of fringe rotation guys isn't the best package, but Gordon Hayward's salary kind of limited who could even bid for him with the Hornets. So the fact that they were able to even find a trade partner, I think is a good, relatively impressive. They got the 2 second rounders, and then they took a flyer on a young player in Trey Mann. So it's not a bad return for a guy in Gordon Hayward, who, while he's a very solid NBA player, I think he averaging like over 15 or 16 points a game with Charlotte. It was going to be a relatively difficult salary to move. So good job by the Hornets. Good job by the Thunder. I just wish the Thunder would have done a little bit more. I mean, if I was a Thunder fan, I would. As a Nuggets fan, keep on keeping on, dude. Next up, we have another big trade, at least as big as this trade deadline went. There's a 3-teamer. There's a lot in this one, so buckle up, get a drink, get ready. We have the Suns, the Grizzlies, and the Nets. They did deals. They did stuff. They made some moves together. The Suns got Royce O'Neal from the Nets and David Roddy from the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies got a 2026 first round pick swap from the Suns, and that pick swap will be the worst of the Suns, Wizards, and Magic. Okay. The Grizzlies also got Chimezie Metu from the Suns, who they then waived. Then the Grizzlies got Yuta Watanabe from the Suns, not waived. The Nets got Keita Bates-Diop, former Nugget, from the Suns. The Nets got Jordan Goodwin from the Suns, who was waived. They got the draft rights to Vanja Mirankovic from the Grizzlies. They got the 2026 second round pick, which is the worst of the Pistons, Bucks, or Magic, from the Suns. They got the Suns owned 2028 second round pick and then their 2029 second round pick. All right, holy shit, there was a lot of stuff there. In a nutshell, a lot of guys were already waived. So there's a lot of picks moving back and forth, a lot of fringe rotation guys moving back and forth. Obviously the biggest get, I guess, here, like the most important player here is Royce O'Neal, who is a solid rotation guy, 6th, 7th, 8th guy in rotation, probably 7th or 8th guy in rotation if you're being realistic. The Suns gave a bunch of guys that aren't really playing. For 2 that might play, David Roddy might play. So I don't hate this, right? Like, if you're the Suns and you have all of these kind of like vet minimum salaries, and like they traded away 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. If none of those guys are really getting minutes, why not try to trade them, consolidate them, see if you can get something slightly better? Like, if you can take 4 guys that aren't going to be in your playoff rotation, trade them, all 4 of them, and able to get maybe 1 guy that's part of your playoff rotation, that's a damn good deal, especially if you're the Suns, because they don't have any money to deal with to really get anybody. So I like this by the Suns. O'Neal's a solid NBA rotation guy. He'll play in the playoffs, come off the bench, give you energy, give you defense. David Roddy, CSU guy, so love him. He's young, he's worth a shot. He's a decent player. He's in the next couple of years, he's worth having on your roster. See if he turns out to be pretty good. He was okay with the Grizzlies, but so yeah. The Grizzlies, they got a first round pick swap for him. So they got a chance to upgrade their pick in 2026 if kind of things fall the right way. And remember, this is the worst of the Suns, Grizzlies, Suns, Wizards, and Magic. So if you think about 2026, Wizards will still probably be bad. The Suns, the Suns are terrible in 2026 if this whole Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant thing goes very south. And then the Magic, like, they're kind of on the cusp of being really good, but we've seen plenty of times where a team is kind of on that cusp and then takes steps back, right? So I kind of like this gamble for the Grizzlies in 2 years, that all 3 of those teams are, either middle of the pack or bad potentially. the players don't move the needle. Obviously, Yuta Watanabe seems like a cool guy, but and he can shoot the three a little bit, but I don't know if he's really all that good. And then the Nets got 3 second-round picks, and then based you up for an expiring role player. So because Royce O'Neal's on an expiring contract, so not a bad deal by them, right? Again, with the way the Suns have been rolling, those second-round picks in 2028, 2029, those could be very high in the draft. Just because the Suns owner is not afraid to make some deals to try to win now, and we have seen time and time again, it's very easy for those to blow up in your face. Just ask the Nets years ago, Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. Okay, I think we're down to the last couple, and these are ones that are actually like significant, right? Next one, we have a 3-teamer again. 76ers, Pacers, Spurs. 76ers got Buddy Hield from the Pacers, obviously. The Pacers got Furkan Korkmaz from the 76ers, who was waived. Pacers also got Doug McDermott from the Spurs. Then they also got a 2024 second-round pick from the 76ers that is originally owned by the Raptors. And then a 2029 second-round pick from the 76ers, again, originally owned by the Blazers. And then the Pacers also got cash from the 76ers. The Spurs roll in all this. They got Marcus Morris from the 76ers, a 2029 second-round pick from the Sixers, originally owned by the Clippers, and some cash. I love this deal from the 76ers. They got one of the best shooters in the league. Realistically, it only cost them one kind of end-of-rotation guy, who is Marcus Morris, right? Everyone else is like Korkmaz wasn't playing and had requested a trade already. Then they gave up a couple second rounders. So I love this haul for the 76ers. In terms of the Pacers, I don't love what they got, but I'm fine with it given the situation. Buddy Hield was going to walk after this offseason. It feels like he's been in trade talks for years. But it does feel like they should have been able to get more. I think they probably waited a bit too long to trade Buddy Hield. They should have traded him this last summer or last year. If we're being real, they probably would have gotten a little bit bigger of a haul for him. So yeah, I'm fine with the Pacers got given the situation, but honestly, they should have traded him last year. I think they would have gotten more for him. On the Spurs, they get off some salary. I think the expectation from what I read is that Morris ends up getting bought out, which kind of makes sense. He doesn't seem like a Spurs type player. If he hasn't already been bought out by the time this ends up releasing. So yeah, don't mind this for the Spurs either. Doug McDermott's fine, but if you're able to move on from that salary, do it. All right, I think this is the last trade, and then I have some other surprises and observations. Then we'll just quickly touch on the All-Star game stuff. All right, Mavs Hornets. Mavericks got PJ Washington, 2024 second round pick from Boston, or is owned by Boston. Obviously, it's from the Celtics. A 2028 second round pick, which will either be the Clippers or the Hornets. I don't know all the details around which one it would convey to. The Hornets ended up getting Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and a 2027 first round pick for the Mavs. So Grant Williams obviously didn't work out in Dallas. The reports I read this week is that a lot of the people in Dallas were like, what the hell is this guy's deal? So good on the Mavs for identifying an issue they had and doing something about it, rather than just trying to make it work. So yeah, Grant Williams didn't work out. PJ Washington is a good player. So I like PJ Washington in Dallas in the near term. It again, like Gafford, it kind of addresses their biggest needs. So to me, the Mavs did a fantastic job of actually in the near term, and this is the important thing with all of what they did. In the near term, they addressed their biggest issues in a very smart way, in a very good way. Like they definitely, front court is not really an issue for them anymore. And that was definitely one of the biggest questions kind of as the season has gone on. Obviously they had to get rid of Seth Curry, who's a great shooter. Though he's kind of struggled this year from three, shooting 36%, which isn't bad, but like if your last name's Curry, it needs to be better. So, I I don't know why Seth Curry gets traded around so much. But you know, I guess that's the price of doing business. The one thing I do worry about this trade, and this is similar to the Gafford trade, I would worry about that first round pick a little bit. So it's in 2027. And who the hell knows where Dallas is in 2027? Like, I can see Luka wanting out in the next couple years if they're not able to make a deep playoff run or two. Because Luka is on that all-time trajectory, and the guys on that all-time trajectory, they want to win, right? It's if you're going to be an all-time player, you need to win. And Luka already has all of the personal, like, I wouldn't say accolades because he hasn't won MVP yet, but like he's gonna win an MVP at some point. It just wouldn't surprise me if he ends up passing out in the next couple of years if they're not able to make a deep playoff run. And then the Kyrie Irving thing. Like, who the fuck knows with that guy? Like what ends up happening, and that's the one thing I would worry about with this for Dallas. And similar to Gafford, that pick in 2027 has potential to be super, super high in the first round. So, and especially with Dallas, just kind of just seems like they're always dysfunctional in a like from a basketball perspective. They always have some glaring issue. We'll see what happens. For the Hornets, I like PJ Washington as a player, so I don't necessarily love this for them. In terms of getting rid of PJ Washington, he's still super young. I do like the potential of that first round pick, though. I'll tell you that. So I'm kind of at a wash for them, right? They're giving up a good player now for potentially a super high first round pick later. And then Grant Williams, Seth Curry are serviceable NBA players, so that's not bad. The one thing is I don't love having to pay Grant Williams through 2026, 2027. PJ Washington was signed through 2026, or sorry, 2025, 26 at a similar price. Like, why not just keep the better player who's also younger? But that's just me. That's all the trades. I think that's every single one that it has happened since I had recorded the last podcast. So let's go to some surprises and observations. All right, let's talk about some surprises and observations. These are just kind of random notes for the trade deadline as I kind of went through all of this. I was surprised the Lakers really didn't do anything at the deadline. Every year there's talk of it, but didn't really happen this year. Yeah, they got Dinwiddie in the buyout market, so they didn't just stay completely pat. But like last year, they made like 3 different deals to completely overhaul their roster and made a Western Conference final run. And with LeBron at age 39, I'm actually a little surprised they didn't kind of do a similar thing. Like maybe they're more, apt to kind of let it ride and see what happens. But when LeBron's age 39, I don't, I would wonder why you wouldn't just go all in every year. With that said, there was this whole, hey, the Warriors tried to trade for LeBron, so maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. Other surprise, I'm surprised DeJounte Murray's still in Atlanta. He seemed to be primed to be moved. Like the week leading up, I don't think anyone got as much chatter about him being traded. He doesn't really fit, in my opinion, with Trae Young. That pairing to me doesn't really work. So I kind of assumed he'd be dealt, but here we are. DeJounte Murray's still in the Hawks. Trae Young is still in the Hawks, and they're just kind of gonna have to figure it out for the rest of the season. Then okay, so that's kind of the 2 team surprises. There are some teams that don't know what the hell they're doing. I don't know if they were buyers or sellers. Like the Raptors, they traded for Kelly Olynyk, which to me is like a win now type of move. But then they offload Dennis Schroeder, and Pascal Siakam, which to me are rebuilding type moves. So they tried to play both sides of the fence, which if you're doing that, you're just going to lose. So that was very interesting to me. The Pacers were kind of in a similar boat. Obviously, Pascal Siakam is probably a win soon type of move. And if you're the Pacers, if you have an opportunity to get an all NBA level player, you should do it pretty much regardless of scenario, especially when you have Tyrese Halliburton as kind of your face of your franchise. But then moving on from Buddy Hield kind of suggests the opposite. Though with the Buddy Hield thing, he's been in trade talks for years. He wasn't going to re-sign the offseason, so I guess that one makes a little bit more sense. But the Raptors, I don't know. I don't know if they really know what they're doing. Speaking of teams not knowing what they're doing, the Bulls doing absolutely nothing is the most mind-boggling thing of the deadline. Right now, and this was as if when I wrote this about a week ago, but they were sitting ninth in the East. Their current roster isn't going to win long term, but then they did absolutely nothing to at least start the process of a rebuild. LaVine getting hurt didn't help, right? And moving him was going to be probably impossible with him hurt. It was already going to be tough enough as it is with him healthy, just because his salary is huge. But it surprised me that Alex Caruso wasn't moved. He could have been dealt for at least a couple picks. That guy would have every single contender wants Alex Caruso on their team. If they say they don't, they're lying to you. And then DeRozan probably could have been dealt somewhere. Yeah, his salary is high as well, similar to LaVine, but DeRozan's kind of a proven commodity in the NBA. He's a multi-time All-Star. So it surprised me the Bulls did absolutely nothing. I don't understand why they did nothing. The Warriors standing pat was somewhat surprising. Again, given they're kind of on that ticking clock with Curry's prime. There's been a bunch of buzz of them making a move. Sounds like they tried to get LeBron James. But I wouldn't have been surprised if they ended up moving Draymond Green or Klay Thompson. Obviously, that stuff didn't work. Now Klay Thompson's coming off the bench, and last night he decided he was Manu Ginobili scoring off the bench. So Warriors are an enigma. I don't understand. But hey, I guess whatever makes you happy, Golden State. There was a lot of buzz, kind of leading up to this deadline. And then there were a lot of little trades. I didn't count how many there were. But it had to have been at least 15. So there were a lot of these like little trades, a lot of these, hey, we'll swap a pick for a pick down the road, we'll swap some cash for a salary dump or whatever. But there really weren't any that really shake up the NBA in any meaningful way. Like the Mavs getting PJ Washington and David Gafford, helps fill some weaknesses for him. But I'm not sure it really changes anything about where they are in the Western Conference. They're still obviously a step below of Denver, Minnesota, OKC, the Clippers, and then maybe they have a conversation in that next group with the Suns and the Pelicans, but they were probably already in that conversation to begin with. So while they did get better, I don't think that really changes a whole lot in the Western Conference pecking order. Makes them maybe a little more dangerous in the playoffs, but probably not by much. The Thunder improved a bit, getting Gordon Hayward, but it didn't address, at least to me, their big weakness in the front court. Getting someone to be able to play behind Chet. They did sign Bismack Biyombo, I think. But I mean, if that's your solution, that is probably not the best solution. That is an emergency action. So yeah, the Thunder did improve a little bit, but again, nothing they did puts them head and shoulders above Minnesota, Denver, or the Clippers. Then Buddy Hield. It's a good get. It's a good move by Philly to get him. But right now, Philly is tied, for better or for worse, the health of Joel Embiid, who knows when he's going to be back. So, if Embiid was healthy, then maybe this at least vaults him over the Bucks. But with Embiid being hurt, the Buddy Hield move is probably, if they're able to re-sign him, it's a good move for the future. But I don't think it really changes much this year. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have on the trade deadline. Like I said, a lot of little moves. There was a lot of hype, and then it just kind of being a lot of nothing. Now before I leave, let's just talk about the All-Stars real quick. We already went through the starters in our last episode. And I gave you my picks for the reserves. My picks were mostly right. So I guess it's not like it's rocket science. But we'll just go over the Eastern Conference All-Stars real quick. So the ones that were actually voted in were, for the East, Bam Adebayo, Paolo Banchero, Jaylen Brown, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey, Donovan Mitchell, Julius Randle. So, in my list, I had Brunson, Maxey, Brown, Adebayo, Banchero, Mitchell, and then I had Trae Young. Now, Julius Randle is hurt. He has a shoulder. Joel Embiid obviously is hurt. He has a knee. So you ended up getting Scotty Barnes and Trae Young as replacements. My kind of replacement players I have is Derek White, Jimmy Butler, whatever. I'm not, Trae Young was a good choice. I think I had him as kind of the last guy in. So him being a replacement to me makes sense. Julius Randle making it in the first place was very surprising to me, but that's fine. The Knicks were on a heater, so I kind of get that a little bit. And then Scotty Barnes, he was a bit surprising, but I do understand it from the perspective of he's definitely the best player in Toronto. He's a young up and coming star, averaging 26 and 8, which is pretty damn good numbers. Personally, I probably would have went with Derek White over Scotty Barnes as a replacement, but obviously I don't get to make the choices. So that's your Eastern Conference reserves. Not anything too surprising or anything I really hate. For the West, I got all but one of these right. So we had Devin Booker, Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, Anthony Edwards, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. Okay, so those are all the ones that made perfect sense. No shit, those were going to be the all-stars. Like, you could do that blindfolded, right? The one that made no sense is Karl Anthony Towns. I don't know why Karl Anthony Towns is an all-star reserve at all. He wasn't even on my radar as a potential all-star. When I was doing reserves, that last wild card for me went to De'Aaron Fox. And then my honorable mentions were Sengun and Lauri Markkanen. And honestly, when I look back at this now, I'm a dumbass and didn't put Domantas Sabonis as my last wild card, who probably should have been it. So regardless, there's 4 players in my mind that should be all-stars over Karl Anthony Towns. Obviously Minnesota's really good, right? But just because you're in the number 1 seed in the West does not mean you should get 2 all-stars. Denver didn't last year. And every time someone's like, well, they're the number 1 seed in whatever conference, I don't care. Do they have 2 of the top 15 players in their conference? No, then they don't belong. They don't deserve to have 2 all-stars. So that's one that makes zero sense to me. In a year where we had so many guys who could be very easily all-stars, the fact that Karl Anthony Towns became an all-star is mind-boggling to me. He's had a fine year, right? 22 points per game, 2.9 assists, 8.4 rebounds. That's pretty good. Domantas Sabonis, I'm going to bring up his stats real quick, who probably should be the all-star in front of, before him. He's averaging 20 points, so what is that, 2 points less? But also he's averaging 13.2 assists, so that's 5 more than Karl Anthony Towns, and 8.3 assists. I said rebounds, 13.2 rebounds, 8.3 assists. Not only that, he's leading the NBA in triple doubles, and at this point should probably be getting some MVP buzz, I think, especially if the Kings go on a bit of a run. So yeah. For the most part, don't hate the all-star teams. It's all a popularity contest anyway. But it's crazy to me. Karl Anthony Towns is a reserve in the West. All right, I think that's all I have for you today. We talked trades, we talked trade deadline, we talked a little bit of all-star. Thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate it. I will be back in the next couple weeks. I don't know when. These podcasts are just kind of like whenever I'm like, hey, there's something interesting to talk about. So, definitely before the playoffs, there will be at least one more power rankings, if not 2. That honestly will probably be the next thing, is talk about kind of where I project everyone going into the playoffs. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't yet, don't forget to follow, subscribe, like, just do the things on all the platforms. You guys know how to work them all. And I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good week.